Hi, I'm Shana Fulcher. I'm the City Council member for Ward 1, and the purpose of this meeting is to provide a chance for Ward 1 residents to meet with EYA representatives to discuss the Takoma Park Metro project. It is likely that this project is going to be approved, and so I've invited Caren Garfield here. She is the Vice President of Multifamily Development. Evan Goldman will also be joining us in a bit. He's the Executive Vice President of Development and Acquisitions for EYA. I'm hoping that we can all express our views about the project, and we are all open to hearing each other's views and concerns, especially when they aren't congruent with our own. And I'm hoping for that from residents and from EYA representatives. And I invite everyone to sort of put down their guard and be respectful and truthful about their concerns, and to hear each other. With that, I will let Caren get started. Is it Caren or Caren?
It's Caren with a C, which is very important these days. Thank you very much. I'm Caren Garfield. As Shana said, I'm Vice President of Multifamily Development with EYA. I will be joined this evening also by Evan Goldman, who's Executive Vice President and one of the owners of EYA, and Alexander College, who's one of the Senior Development Managers. We actually had another community meeting not far from here this evening, and they're just wrapping that up. So, is it possible to move that a little closer? Or
do you want to just switch seats?
That'd be great. That will test my eyes to the max if I need to read that far. So first, I wanted to thank everybody for your time this evening. We certainly value community input and outreach. EYA, we are a 30-year-old company. Actually celebrated our 30th anniversary last June, and we deliver high-quality, mixed-income housing in the DC metro area. We've built more than 7,000 homes and apartments, and we really are leaders in creating a sustainable model to address attainable housing and affordable housing. I think there are I won't say all, but the vast majority of our projects have a component of affordable housing, and many people in our company are very passionate about providing affordable housing, particularly at transit stations and life within walking distance. We are focused a lot on building consensus. We know that not everybody will always agree with everything, but we do think that getting community input and outreach, and I think we started our community outreach process for this current design in early 2022. I don't know the exact count, but we've probably had plus or minus 25 community meetings over that time with stakeholders from both DC and Maryland. We have been recognized with a lot of awards over the years, and our core values are integrity, determination, excellence, innovation, and collaboration, and those really are values that we all live by each day. And our tagline is life within walking distance, and so the project we're going to talk about today is, I think, an ideal project for our platform, and really is at a metro. You can see the vast majority of our projects over the years have been at metros or close to transit, and that is a very important component of our project. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just showing the evolution of the plan. We've actually had this site under contract for 20 plus years now, probably 25 years. I've been with the company for 2 years this month, actually. But in 2015, the plan was different in a variety of ways. It had about 193 units. It kept the WMATA bus loop and circulation where it is today. And it built a large, structured, open structured parking garage with the residential building above it. A couple things happened since 2015, and namely WMATA became willing to reevaluate and look at where their bus operations were being located, And two, in 2021, DC adopted their comprehensive plan, which really called for medium density, mixed use, mixed income development at the Metro Station. And there are several highlights to this project, and I'm going to go through some more words first, and then we'll get to some of the photos and images and site plans. But the plan is 434 units, and 15% of them are affordable. Affordable to people earning 30% to 60% AMI. And of those units, we have of those 30%, so the more deeply affordable units, 6 of them will be 3-bedroom units. And so providing 3-bedroom family units at affordable rents at the Metro is something we're very proud of. And we also have applied for a program through the district called HANTA, which is offers abatements for a tax abatement in return for providing 33% of the units at affordable housing. And so if awarded that, we would be able to provide 144 units. We would still keep those family-size units at the project. And then in addition to that, we have retail that we'll be providing, and we actually have a signed letter of intent with a small format grocer, which is a sorely needed use in this location. Certainly not there today, and we'll make this a really truly mixed use, vibrant area where you could really live, work, play right on the Metro. We're providing a number of community benefits. Part of doing a PUD process in the district, you provide a lot of various community benefits. So we'll have entrepreneurial opportunities and outreach opportunities throughout the project, and we've committed to, through construction, working with the local high schools, with our local council members' office, to advertise internship opportunities and for youth. Having access and affordable units at Metro. We're going to have dedicated open space, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Today, the open space that's there today, the open space that we'll be providing is in kind as far as size to what exists today. However, we'll be providing a public space easement on the park space, meaning in perpetuity it will be a publicly accessible community park. We really designed the building to respond to the various things that surround the site. It's really a multi-sided building. There's no real back to our building like you sometimes have. We are going to be doing stormwater management improvements, and we'll go through today. There are none on the site. We will be adding them. We have an active tree preservation program, and actually a lot of the trees and preserving some of the heritage trees actually dictated some of the siting and some of the layout of the building and the paths and the sidewalks. We'll be providing a shared use path for bicycles, pedestrians to access the site from Eastern Avenue through to Carroll Street. We're going to be doing enhanced pedestrian safety measures with bumping out some of the curbs so that the distance for crossing is shorter. We'll have some raised crosswalks across where the new Metro bus and Kiss a Ride services will be going. And we'll be doing a lot of green innovation and sustainable design. The residential building will be all electric. We'll have electric vehicle charging stations and solar, a robust bicycle program for both renting bikes through Capital Bike Share and offering memberships to residents, as well as a lot of bicycle storage and racks throughout the site. The table on the right, I think, is important. There've been we've seen a lot of comments, and we want to make sure that everyone understands kind of what we're actually providing or proposing. So the way that this chart essentially is showing what matter of right you could do. So if you just built something there today with the current zoning, the PUD column shows what we can do with our PUD, or by going through a PUD process, I should say. And then the far right column that's bolded is what the project is actually proposing. So the total FAR that you could do today is 3.2 or 4.2 if you do inclusionary zoning, meaning if you include 10% affordable units, which is less than the 15% that we're providing. And a PUD would allow you to go to 5.04. Our project is 1.69. FAR, floor area ratio, essentially is the amount of square footage. So in simplest terms, we are providing for far less square footage on this site than we technically could through the PUD process. Similarly, and we'll share this presentation and it'll be up on our website, so we don't need to go through every detail, but I want to highlight a few of them. The lot occupancy, similarly, you could technically go to 80%.
Could you explain all the acronyms that you're using? I have no idea.
Sure. Floor area ratio is essentially...
D and PUD.
Sorry, sure. So matter of right means that with the zoning today, that's what you could build. A PUD is a planned unit development. The reason for going through that process is that you essentially design the height, the bulk, the mass of the building to whatever the proposed land use says that should go there. What the community really gains from going through a PUD is that when you do a PUD, you offer a lot more community benefits that you would not otherwise offer if you were just doing matter of right. So what does that mean? So some of the things on the left, you would do more affordable housing, do more public open space, do more community art benefits and public art benefits, and a whole host of things that we are providing and proposing and proffering at this site. And then our project is just what we're proposing. FAR is floor area ratio, and it essentially takes the square footage of your site, and it tells you divide it by the number of floors, and essentially it tells you how much square footage you can do on a site. And the lot occupancy is how much of a site, how much your building takes up of that site. So if you have a 1 acre site and you can do 80% lot occupancy, then you do 0.8 of that 1 acre would be taken up with your building. So the headline here is if you could do 80% lot occupancy through what the zoning today allows on the site, 80% through the PUD, we're actually only proposing 26%. So we're actually proposing a less dense building than what you could do through the PUD process. And then the other one is building height. So with today, matter of right, with inclusionary zoning, so if you provide 10% affordable units, you could go up to 70 feet. The PUD process that we're going through would allow up to 90 feet. However, our building is 76 feet. So we are actually doing a lower building than what we technically could do. And then the next few things are just more details about how you can do penthouses on top of it. Again, through the matter of right, it would allow you to do a 12-foot penthouse plus 18-foot 6-inch with mechanical, or 20-foot. But again, the headline is that we are doing 18 feet. So we're doing lower than what technically you could do. And similarly, for the penthouse stories, you could do 1 plus a mezzanine for both matter of right and PUD, planned unit development, and we're doing 1.
How many stories is the building?
It's 7 stories,
Okay.
yes. Just also wanted to highlight some upcoming meetings. I think I've mentioned we've had a number of them, but tomorrow the ANC is hosting a site walk of the meeting at the site. So we'll walk and talk and point to things and highlight various things. There'll be questions, I'm sure, about trees and where things are going to go. Tomorrow night we'll also at 7 o'clock be presenting to the ANC's Housing Justice Committee, who we've met with previously. And then next Thursday, June 15th, I think it's at 4 o'clock or 4:30, is the zoning commission hearing.
What times do they walk?
5 o'clock, 5 to 6.
Meeting at the Metro entrance?
That's a good, yes, I don't know exactly where, but I imagine there, yeah, somewhere on the site you'll see a group of people. But I imagine that's probably where. I actually don't know.
Excuse me, we're videotaping this for people who are unable to see it. So if you are gonna ask a question, please let me know. I can come back with Mike.
This slide, you all know your neighborhood and know the location, but why it's important is, when we started to look at the site, we looked at what was around us for context, for both the architectural style, for where we wanted to site various things on the site the building and the various uses on the property. And when we look on the image on the left shows, and I know it's a little bit hard to see probably, but those green blobs are showing various open spaces in the region, and those are, and the circles show half-mile circles. And you'll see that there really is nothing, no meaningful open green space right near this site, other than what is there today, which is, I think, pretty underutilized and sits, surrounded by bus uses. And so we thought, it's very important to provide a really meaningful green open space here. And then the image on the right, the purple bands show the retail corridors for both Takoma, DC and Takoma Park, Maryland, which really stitch together. And on the Metro site, on the property side of that, of Carroll Street, it really is currently kind of the gap in the smile. And so when we looked at how we wanted to use this site and utilize it and where to put things, we really thought, putting a retail area along that retail corridor to really close that gap, putting all of the bus and metro services up close to the metro tracks and close to the entrances where you'll see the blue. And then the building zone is what you see in red, so that's where we put the building. And then to the right, and kind of surrounding down from Eastern down to Cedar Street, is this new park that we'll be building that creates not only a great community park, but also a buffer between the neighborhood and the buildings. And this is showing what the site plan looks like. And I think there are a couple of very creative ways of using the site. And so again, all of the Metro bus services are on that. Does this, I don't know if this has a pointer. Yeah. So all the Metro bus services are along, you come in off of Carroll Street, and I'll show a circulation diagram a little bit later to go into more detail. But there are 10 bus bays along this side of the road, and then the Kiss and Ride will come in here, go off to the right. There's a median in between the Kiss and Ride and the buses, and then buses can use this roundabout to either come back out to Carroll or to go back out to Eastern. Similarly, the ride-on buses that currently come in off of Eastern will be able to come in off of Eastern and access the bus loop this way. This multi-use courtyard, it does a number of things. The entrance to the property is off of Cedar Street here. And what all of the loading, if you're parking for retail, if you're parking for the residential building, if you're picking up trash from the building, if you're moving in, if you're loading the retail, picking up trash from the retail, that all happens off of this courtyard. And it's going to be really elegantly designed, a really fun, playful space. I'll show some images of it. But it does a really nice thing in that it takes all of those services off of the surrounding roads and really puts them internal to the site, so you don't hear them, see them, and they don't interrupt traffic. This is the community park, which is the more green, passive part of the park, and I'll show some thoughts and ideas we have for that. And then this is the retail transit gathering plaza, which is more still open space and still very usable for gathering, but more hardscaped with some plantings. And then the retail faces Carroll Street. The residential lobby entrance is right on this corner. When you drive in here, there'll be drop-offs for Uber and for people to drop folks off. That'll happen right off of this area as well. And so again, it's 434 units, about 17,000 square feet of retail, 1.8 acres of open space, including the more passive and the plaza space. 163 residential parking spaces, 67 retail parking spaces, 10 WMATA bus stops, and 16 Kiss a Ride. This is, I just want to show this for context. Hopefully you can see it. This dashed line here is actually the plan from 2015 that shows how close the building came to Eastern Avenue. And now what we've done is really set back the building more meaningfully from Eastern Avenue. And then the images on the right, that white shows the outline of the building. So it shows, how far back it really is when you drive down the road. So that's if you're facing southeast on Eastern, driving towards the Metro, yes, no. Towards Cedar, yes. And then driving the other way, you would see it, again, you can see it a little bit, but it's not right up against the road like it was in the old plan. In addition, we also looked at how does this building fit within the retail context of the existing Tacoma DC and Tacoma Park, Maryland retail corridor. We have met a handful of times with the Old Tacoma Business Association and understand that we want to be stitching this retail together and ensuring that we are also in the spirit and kind of in a similar scale of the existing retail. So this image, okay, I don't know what I just did, sorry.
I'll just ask a question about, we're seeing messages there on the screen. I don't know if you're having a chance to look at them, or perhaps you could respond to them as we go. Otherwise, they're just going to fly away. And,
I am keeping track of the questions. I'm logged into online. Is it your preference to take care of the questions throughout the presentation? I thought we would wait till the end.
Happy to do it either way.
Okay.
And I should just say I was...
Either way, I just didn't know if they were going to evaporate. Yours, well, someone just said something very complimentary about what you've done in Forest Glen with the green space there.
So sorry.
We have a mic now, so.
Good, yes, straight
Why don't we pause when, why don't we wait until we get to the end?
Okay,
and then
sure.
I'll go back through it. And I'm gonna take the online questions before I'm gonna take the in-person questions, just to change things up for people that don't have access to show up to a meeting.
So this image is showing what we call a section. So it's comparing the retail in the projects in our building. So you see the retail on the ground level and how it relates to the retail across Carroll Street. And really what it's showing is that we're in line with the scale of the storefront and the height of it. And then this is just doing the same thing, but from a slightly different part down the street. And again, similarly, you can see the height. This is the building across the street, and this is our retail. And you can see that it is in line with what is existing there today. And then furthermore, we also looked at beyond just what's across the street from us and at other retail in the immediate area, just to see the context and the scale of of the proposed retail, which is the far left image showing just a sliver of what that height of the storefront looks like versus the storefront and heights of other retail in the area. And then this is, I think, someone asked the circulation question. I think this image helps display this a little bit better. And so I'm going to just walk through what these different color lines mean. And then, let's see. So I'm going to start with actually looks kind of, I don't know what color that is, greenish on this. It's yellow, but this is the bus. So the buses, again, will come in off of Carroll Street, go down the bus loop, come around here. They can come back out Eastern. They can come in Eastern. And then there are 10 bus bays that sit along close to the tracks. The Kiss and Ride is the pink hatched line, dashed line. So again, you'll come in off of Carroll. There's a median here that has plantings, and there are 3 accessible spaces for the Kiss and Ride. And so you'll come in here, come down here again, and then come back out Eastern. And then there are a variety.
So people can't see
Yeah,
the
maybe
pointer
use
online.
the mouse and the computer at the same time.
Oh, that's a good
I
point.
can do that for you if you want while you're pointing on the screen.
Okay, that's a really good point. I have not done a hybrid meeting, so this is different.
Just grab a chair.
Okay. So I should, while we're doing this, this is Evan. I introduced you before you got here, and Alexander College. Okay. Thank you. And then we have a really robust pedestrian network and bicycle network going through the site. So the pedestrian is shown in this blue. There are a variety of ways to get around through the site. I think you can go along the sidewalk, along the building, along the new shared use path. You can cut through the retail plaza. In addition, you can also cut through this new plaza, through the new multi-use plaza, and come out right directly to where the elevator entrance for the metro is. So really, the point was to make this just, a variety of options and ease to get through through and around the site. I think, let's see, and then the shared use path, the intent of that is really to accommodate bicyclists going through the site. So it'll be a nice wide path for both bicyclists, pedestrians, again, to come off of Eastern, to go through this really nice new park that we're creating, and then catch back up with the sidewalk on Cedar and Carroll. And then in addition, we have a lot of accessible paths through the site. So this is showing all of the ways that, if you need accessible routes, again, you can use all the sidewalks. You can go through the site to cut through here directly across this, the Kiss and Ride and bus loop to this arrow ends right where the existing elevator entrance to the metro is. And then similarly, you could also come to the main entrance of the metro, get through to the retail, to the building, and so a lot of various access points throughout the site. I mentioned earlier the trees and that they, in many ways, helped shape where some of the building footprint is today. And so, in many ways, we're so fortunate to have these nice mature trees. So, for instance, along Carroll Street and our retail plaza, we're keeping all of those nice mature trees. So we have this beautiful tree canopy, which will really, a lot of times when you do a new building, you don't have the benefit of these nice mature trees. So we're really thrilled about that. This is a heritage tree that sits right in the middle of the site. This we actually are relocating from right here to right where this orange dot. So it'll be located and have a prime spot in the new community park. And then this is an existing tree that you see off of Eastern, which is right when you pull into the existing parking lot. To the right and to the left, those trees both stay. We actually changed the design to keep those. At one point, we had the entrance coming in here, and determined that it was really important to keep these trees. And then there are a variety of other non-heritage trees, but special trees on the site that we'll be maintaining and keeping. And in addition, we'll be adding trees and green, and we'll be adding trees along the bus loop. We'll be adding some plantings throughout the park space and having planters in the plaza area.
Excellent.
And I know this has been a big question, and we've heard a lot about stormwater management. Today on the site, there is no stormwater management. So it rains, water flows right off the site. There's nothing in place. Our proposed plan adds meaningful stormwater management through both bioretention on the site and some green roof. And so we treat all of our stormwater is captured on the site. And it meets, sorry, make sure I get it right. All of the standards of the district's Department of Energy and the Environment are what we're meeting for our stormwater management. And so all of these green areas show where it is on the site. And then this, I think, helps demonstrate for the WMATA services, which all is in yellow. All of the stormwater management goes to these three bioretention areas that are outlined in yellow. All of the water for the plaza, the multi-use corridor, the community park in pink, all of that goes to this bioretention that's outlined in pink. And then the blue for the residential and retail building, all of that stormwater management happens either via green roof, which is here and here, or bioretention facilities that are in and throughout and surrounding the site.
Do you want to describe what bioretention is? Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Oh. Is my mic on? Okay, thank you. This is Evan Goldman. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in a little bit on bioretention because some people might not know what that is or what that might look like. So as you know, in the past, stormwater management wasn't something that was really thought of as part of development. It's really important that when water, especially with the bigger rain events we're currently having, that it can, when it hits the ground, that it needs to seep into the ground, be absorbed by the dirt, go down into the core of the earth, or not the core, but underneath the surface of the earth to the water table. And so, so as storms have gotten worse, stormwater management has become a bigger and bigger issue. In one of our first meetings with residents along Eastern Avenue, we were alerted to the fact that stormwater management was a huge issue and that there was flooding going to especially the single-family homes across the street. So we focused on a really robust stormwater management plan. What a bioretention facility, it's kind of the gold standard in stormwater management. Essentially what you're creating is it can often be as big as this room, but an area where it might be 2 to 3 feet depressed from the typical grade, so that when there's a really big storm event, and instead of the water running off the site, it will run into that area that's depressed, so it stays within it. And then the water will percolate into the ground and also evaporate up when the sun comes back out after the storm is over, instead of it just rushing off the site into the storm system or into other people's properties. And so you're retaining, it's called retention, you're retaining that water on your site. You're then either treating it or letting it naturally percolate back into the earth, and it's a better way to do stormwater management. And that's, green roofs work similarly. They're not as effective as bioretention, but in green roofs, you might have 9 to 12 inches of dirt or other substance on the roof and plants. The water will hit the dirt, it will stay within it, it will evaporate or sink into the dirt and then be absorbed. But bioretention facilities are typically deeper and work better for that. Go for it.
Thank you. So, when we took into consideration tree locations and how we had to treat stormwater, accommodate WMATA bus services and kiss and ride, create a park, it helped inform the shape of the building. And then what we did is went through this conceptual massing where, we took it up and then we started to look at how do we articulate these various facades to then, respond to and complement and look at what's on any side of them. And so we developed these various typologies or styles for the design depending on what its adjacency is. So these images start to show how that massing then started to take form and shape in the design. I should say that we had our Historic Preservation Review Board hearing last Thursday, and we did get some feedback on some, I'd call them relatively modest architectural design changes, but we are exploring implementing some of those, or we are working with exploring and making some of those changes. So What you see here will look largely similar. However, you might start to see some different colors and some slightly modest facade changes. But the form, the shape, the articulation, and things like that are going to be largely the same. So the image on the upper left, what I really like about that is it gives you a good sense of the park, creating this buffer between Eastern and Cedar. At its narrowest point, which is right here, that's about 63 feet set back from Eastern Avenue. At its widest point here is about 188 feet. So it's a really meaningful setback from the road. And I think when we saw that image, when you drive down the street, that gives you a sense of just how set back it is and how meaningful that green open space is. And then on that same image, you can see the retail plaza and the retail flanking the ground level of this, the front part of the building. In the background, you see the Metro. This is that entrance into that multi-use courtyard, where the vehicles will go. And then the residential lobby entrance is right on this corner here where you come in off of this road. The image on the upper right, what this I think does a really good job of starting to show you is what that multi-use courtyard looks like from the Metro services, from where the buses and the Kiss and Ride go. And again, you'll be able to walk, you can't drive through here to here, but you can walk through right here. So if you're parking here or you just want to cut through, you can get directly there. So there's a lot of various ways that you can traverse the site and get through. And then let's see, this bottom left one, again, I think does a good job of showing the how the architecture not only steps down and steps back as it is closer to Eastern Avenue and has this opportunity for green roof, but also starts to take on a slightly more townhome kind of feel with respect to the architectural style. And then the image on the bottom right shows you how so this is the parking, and again, it's one level is below grade and one is at grade for a variety of reasons. One is the slope of the site and how we're kind of working with what the site is. The other is for the retail parking that we're providing to have at-grade access. So you park in the retail, you walk right across the multi-use corridor to either go to the Metro, to go to shops in Takoma, or to go to retail at our project. And then the where the parking is here, it'll have a green screen and be really nicely a decorative screen with green in season. And then these images show the evolution of those of what we just saw, and these are artist renderings that I think do a very nice job of showing the scale of how this fits with this building here. In the background is the new NDC condominium building that's under construction right now. So this view is taken from if you were hovering above the metro tracks, and you get a good sense of the retail, the scale of the plaza. These are the existing trees that we're keeping on there, so it would be a nice shaded area to sit. And then you get a sense of how we've broken up the building, with both architectural style, with actually breaking it up, and then also with different colors. The image on the right is if you were coming right out of the Metro. So you can see how the Kiss and Ride entrance is that's what this vehicle is showing, where Kiss and Ride would come in. This bus is exiting the bus loop. And then you see the retail plaza, the retail with the plaza, opportunities for outdoor dining, for congregating, for relaxing, just a really nice space that'll add a lot of vibrancy. It'll make the area it'll be safer. You'll have eyes on the street. You'll have activity with the retail, and just really make a nice, pleasant experience. And then this image is showing, so this is off of Cedar, the entrance into the multi-use courtyard, sorry. And then this is the residential lobby entrance right here. And then this image is just giving you, if you were hovering above the new condo building that's under construction. So I guess in other words, it's a very unique situation where you would see this building in its entirety, but it gives you a good sense of, again, how we've worked to respond to the various adjacencies. So creating something more commercial facing Carroll Street versus getting a more residential scale as it goes towards the park and down Eastern Avenue. And then this is showing a little bit more detail about how that multi-use courtyard actually works, where you drive in off of Cedar Street. This is the residential lobby entrance. There's a place for people to drop people off, for Uber stops, for the retail and residential parkers to go in this entrance right here to the right. There's going to be a loading entrance. And then there's going to be bike rooms, and the pedestrians from the garage will come out this right about here, and there'll be, you can see there's just nice paving distinctions, bollards, ways for pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicles to all share a space. There'll be good signage and wayfinding to also help with that. And you can see when you drive in, there's opportunities for some fun art. This is just suggestive of what can go there. We're committed to working with local artists to design that, as well as the murals that could happen on this wall, which is the back of the retail space on that courtyard. And then the retail can really wrap around this space. Again, some nook and a little nook area for more outdoor dining. And just really to keep this as a nice, active, vibrant, special space. And then the image on the top left shows the site plan for that retail plaza. And then this rendering below it shows what that space starts to feel like. So you have the retail along at the ground floor of the building, outdoor dining right outside of that, kind of an outdoor dining zone, and then we use the grade to create these various levels and seating opportunities. And again, these are the existing trees today, and we're able to keep those and design around them so to have a very nice, lush, shaded feel. And then this community park, this you see in the middle, this kind of sculptural piece. It won't be exactly that. The plan is to really create something that's a multi-generational, climbable space or area for relaxing, for playing, and to really have these special seating areas. A small lawn to it's not going to be a soccer field, but to kick a ball. That we integrate the stormwater management to it'll have a nice lush planted feeling, and you'll have paths and trails going through the space. And then this is just our design team, and that we've been working with, all local experienced professionals we're very fortunate to be working with. And finally, this is our website where we do put all of these presentations. We have a frequently asked questions section and links to all of our filings and submissions with the city. And I guess we'll open it up to questions.
So I'm going to start with the questions from online. Did you bring a drink to take a sip of water or anything?
I'm good.
Our first question was from Diana, and she says, at 8 a.m. on weekdays, there are approximately 8 buses idling. This differs from buses actively picking up and dropping off passengers. Where will they fit?
So,
You want me to go? Oh, you're, sorry, I
Oh,
forgot
sorry.
you have that.
yeah, I'm just going to go to the site plan to show kind of how the buses work. And I think that it's actually a huge improvement. Sorry. It went to one too many. So all of the buses come in, if you can see these, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sawtooth.
Sawtooth. These sawtooth spaces. So this is where all of the buses, so there are 10 bus spaces here. So all of the buses are able to pull in. There will be bus shelters at each of those bus bays. And that's where the buses will wait and pick up and drop off passengers. And then the kiss and ride happens on this side. So there's a median here with a crosswalk that goes through it. The crosswalk across the kiss and ride is raised for traffic calming. Candidly, WMATA did not want it raised where the buses go. So it will be not raised there, but there will be a clear crosswalk to the metro. But
Kiss and ride?
16. And 3 of those 16 are accessible spaces.
It's on that edge.
But yeah, so all the buses will happen with stopping, dropping off, and picking up along the Metro Rail side of the property. And so we think it's a great improvement from what's there today, where they're really, they're bisecting the site. They're creating, it's not that pleasant to use that green space with buses idling there. So we're, really taking it and moving it close to the metro where it wants to be.
Okay. And then Diana also commented that no one will use the community park. The current space of 200 trees is primarily for filtering bus fumes. This smaller space will not be used as a park and will not filter any bus fumes. So that's more of a comment and less of a question.
Shana, could you say the person's last name if they have said what?
I can try. Vidutis. Thank you. Dolores Milmo said, EYA did a good job on the nearby historic Forest Glen Seminary and also on the National Register in terms of respecting the existing historic structures. So we were taken aback by the massive scale and design of your Takoma proposal. At almost 500,000 square feet, it dwarfs existing commercial buildings of 40 to 50 feet and the 2-story historic homes in DC and Maryland. The scale of your proposal needs to be dialed back in order to be more compatible with surrounding communities in DC, Maryland, and Maryland. EYA should do better. So once again, more of a comment.
But she can respond to it, so.
I think candidly, we have an affordable housing crisis in here. The ability to create 434 units and up to potentially 33% of them affordable at the metro. I think as we showed, just go back to that chart, we're actually doing meaningfully less density than technically we could with respect to both the height, the floor area ratio that we talked about. And so, this site calls for medium density, mixed income, mixed use uses.
I'll add to that too. Is my mic on or? Oh, great. So just, first of all, I appreciate the recognition of the historic work we've done in the past. EYA does have an excellent reputation for historic preservation on numerous projects, from Silver Spring to the one you mentioned near the Forest Glen Metro to the Josephite Seminary building, where we just got that building placed on the historic registry. And I think that actually speaks to our expertise in this area and why we feel comfortable that in this case, where there are no existing historic structures on the site, that this is the right answer. And I think there is a little bit of our view, is a little bit of a misconception between historic and short. There are plenty of examples of beautiful, moderate or tall buildings that are historic all around the world. In fact, in most cute little downtowns all around the country, you have gorgeous church steeples or civic buildings that are often the tallest buildings in those areas, and they're typically in the center of the village. So the fact that this site is right at the metro station, that it is fronted by a beautiful, very large park, that it is the center where you would typically have the most height, that it is at transit, that there are no historic structures of value on the property. We have absolutely zero issues about what we've proposed from a historic perspective. It does not mean that it needs to look exactly like the buildings within the historic district. And in fact, one of the most practiced methods of historic preservation is that if you're building a new building, you either repeat exactly what those buildings are and make it look as if it was historic itself, or you build something completely different so it's clear what the historic structures were within the village and what the newer buildings are, so that people aren't confusing the two. So I understand the concern on height. I understand that people have that concern. In this case, given the zoning, given the height limitations, given the proximity to Metro, given the need for housing, this is what we've proposed and we feel very comfortable with it.
I'm sorry, we're going
I'm going to do online questions first. Mom. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a riot.
Chantal Warzola asks, does the 7 stories cited include the penthouse and any penthouse mezzanine?
Do you want to answer that or do you want me to?
Yeah, it's 7, it's 7 stories.
Plus the mechanical.
Plus mechanical and elevator shafts that are shown. Sorry. Find a good rendering that shows.
But I would note,
Oh, that's good.
mechanical does not, when DC zoning looks at height of a building, they don't count mechanical. So if you're comparing this 7-story building to, let's say, a 5-story building, that building often also has a mechanical penthouse on top of it as well.
Yeah, so these are showing where it's either mechanical or elevator, are these setback, which candidly, you probably would not see ever, or you probably won't see it.
And Chantal also further asked, what's the total height, including all penthouse and rooftop structures?
So the building height is 76 feet, and then I believe that the rooftop structures go, I want to say,
I think it was 18.
Yeah, I think it's 18 feet, but rather than misspeak, I will just pull it up. Yeah, 18 feet.
And then I'll add on top of that quickly, let's go back to that perspective view where you were showing the whole, I went the wrong way. So I think this really helps here, this one. Okay, so for example, the way we as people perceive buildings and space is with our eyes. And so if you are, and most people who are going to be perceiving this building will be at the sidewalk or the streets in front of the buildings, right? Not up in bird's eye view like you're seeing these buildings. There's no human that can perceive or see this entire building at once. And so I know when people saw this image, their initial concern was, oh my God, it's a mammoth building. So it's a 6-acre site. It is big because it's a big site. It's one of the biggest sites in all of Tacoma. And we broke it down into scale into bits and pieces in different buildings. But from a perception perspective, if you're in the retail plaza, for example, you will see retail and 5 stories of residential above that retail. That's approximately 70 feet in height. If you are in front of the lobby of the building, once again, you're going to be lower in grade, but you'll see approximately a retail base plus about 5 stories of residential above that. Where that changes a little bit is as you wrap around the building, because retail is typically about 18 to 20 feet of height. When you get to the residential portion of the building, instead of 20 feet of retail, you have 2 levels of residential. It's the same height. So even though in this case it's 7 stories here, it's the same height as the 6-story building that was over here. It's just that the retail has become 2 residential levels. As you then wrap further around to Eastern Avenue, which is where we are closest to single-family houses, as you can see here, this is a 6-story building in this area that you would perceive from the park because we stepped it down as a concession to the residents across the street, so that if you're in this park, if you're in the street on the sidewalk, you will see about that 6 stories and then this projection here. So yes, if you were to take, the grade all the way from down here to the highest point all the way over here, is it taller? Yes. We have a lot of slope on the site, and we've had the building kind of marches up that slope, generally as a 7-story building, in some places 6.
Thank you. Where will disabled drivers be able to park for the day, for example, if they're going to work or need full day parking?
So the metro parking has never been intended for commuter parking. However, our retail parking will include, I want to say, by law we have to provide, I think, 2% of our total retail parking, 5% of our retail parking, and I think we have 5 accessible public retail spaces, public parking spaces. And then for the Kiss and Ride, there are, of the 16, 3 of those are accessible spaces.
So is commuter parking being eliminated?
Yes.
It is used for commuter parking and has been. Just want to get that out.
Robert Lanza says it's 17,000 square feet of retail, yes. Grocery store, yes. How much of the 17,000 square feet is the grocery store?
It's about 7,000 of the 17,000.
Chantal Warzala again. What is the actual size of the community park? As I understand it, the open space includes paved spaces as well as small bits of green space on the edges of the property.
Want to go to a site plan?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So the community park space, this space is about 1 acre. And then the plaza is about 8/10 of the acre. So that's more or less the 1.8 acres.
And the existing park space is about 1.75 acres. So
Yeah.
it's similar in size. It's a different orientation, but similar in size.
I'm sorry, can you explain that again for me? Because I don't quite understand. I do understand that you are saying that the proposal doesn't lose a significant portion of green space. And so for the community park area, how does that compare to the green space that is currently there?
So the green space that's there today is about 1.74 or 5 acres. These two spaces combined is 1.8 acres. Obviously, some of this is now hardscape, and that's to create outdoor dining and stuff for the retail and to make it more lively in this zone. And so there will be less grass specifically here, although also grass on other parts of the site. But there'll be a more active park that's of the same size as that existing park.
Thank you. Diana Vidutis asks, or stated, isn't 314 Carroll being built right now? Replaced a much lower 7-Eleven, stating that it is just like other retail in the area is disingenuous. The new building is at a new height, not typical to the area. Can you speak to that?
Well, you were saying that the retail height was at the same level as the retail across the street, not that our building
Right,
is
I was
a
saying
story
the
taller.
retail, let me just go to that image. I think
go
it'll
for it.
help clarify. I wasn't suggesting that the height of the building was the same. I'm suggesting that what we're showing is that the scale of the retail with respect to the height of the storefront. And Evan mentioned it earlier, a lot of ways that people experience the world is that first 20 feet. And so the scale of our storefronts, of our canopy, of how you experience the space is in line with what's across the street. And then similarly, if you look at other retailers, just a select few from the Takoma area, you can see that when you look at the storefront and how that reads, it's very similar in scale and feel to what exists today. It's not the ultimate height of the building. Some of these retailers might be single story and some might have something above them. We were just referencing the actual height of the storefront and how that retail reads.
Robert Lanza asks, what other retail is planned?
So the intention is to have cafes, coffee shop, small restaurants, really to activate that outdoor dining and activate the space. But that's what we'll seek.
But one thing I will say, if you think about DC in general, there aren't a lot of locations in DC where you have grand, large outdoor cafe zones. Most of the outdoor cafe dining that is in the city was added to existing streets that had existing sidewalk widths. And so you might have a few tables outside a restaurant, but not really nice big outdoor dining that you might see in a more suburban context. When we presented this to Office of Planning, one of the things they were excited about, as are the retail tenants and brokers we've been working with, is this will be one of the few projects in the city where you can, on a nice night, have ample outdoor seating at some of the restaurants in these spaces, and I think that's what will allow us to attract some really good restaurant tenants for this building. And I know that's been a struggle. There are people in Tacoma that want to see more restaurants, and so I think this will be the type of project that will be able to deliver that.
Are you looking at national chain restaurants?
No, that wouldn't be our preference. We haven't started that process yet, but typically we don't. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could see as a national chain would be some of the smaller fast casual restaurants, so like a Sweet Green or a Cava or those types of restaurants where you kind of need it almost to be a chain to work. But for the restaurant spaces, we would try to find a local entrepreneur.
I'm going to do 2 more questions online, and then I'm going to do some from people that are in person, and then go back to online. So Robert Lanza furthered, will WMATA be providing, and I know that you sort of already went over this, but parking spaces be short-term or long-term or a mixture of both?
So they'll be providing their 16 Kiss-A-Ride spaces. What the duration of those is?
They're typically 15 minutes,
Yeah.
I think. But I think they probably were asking more about the parking that we're providing, maybe, and so that would be more like a typical garage where it might be $1 for an hour, and there'd be a valet or a potential validation at the retail tenants. As you stay longer, you would pay more. So you conceivably could park longer. It would get more expensive the longer you stay because we don't want it to become a commuter parking lot. We really want it to be for the retail in downtown Tacoma as well as our own project.
We don't.
Well, I know, but
We'd like to have some metro parking.
I know.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
a real
feel
problem.
like this was a metro with a
Okay,
parking
just
lot.
real quick, if you've got a public comment, we want to have it on the microphone. So.
Sorry.
Okay.
Last,
I know we're not supposed to officially, but,
No,
you
go
know.
ahead.
Okay, so I think all this is great. I just feel like this was a metro site with a metro parking lot. I've lived here for 42 years. I've been using it and using it and using it. And to say that it wasn't a parking lot for people that commuted is just not true. So it seems strange to me that that's the way this is all being presented, as if, oh, no parking for metro, no parking for people to commute. And so that's my thing. I think the rest of it's all fine. I just don't understand why you couldn't dig down, make a few more places that some people might be able to use who cannot maybe walk all that way. I don't know. Maybe everybody can take an Uber back and forth when they go to the theater or they do whatever. Just drive downtown instead. It doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll address that too. So, if it were up to DC DOT, Department of Transportation, we'd have 0 parking. Their preference is no parking on the site, and we had a fight just to get the parking that we have. And I know that we're right on the border here, so you have residents on Maryland in a more suburban condition relative to where DC is going. But DC's view is that the city's overparked, that the only way we get people out of their cars, the only way we deal with the crisis we have from an environmental perspective is to provide less parking for new buildings. And so that's the direction we needed to go. I know that is not great for some residents that really want to use that parking. And then second to that, WMATA is responsible for, if there were to be new replacement parking in this building, that's something WMATA would have to justify to their board that it's worth spending money for. And given where WMATA is right now, they have a lot of capital expenditures they need to spend. Their board, as you know, a month ago or 2 months ago, made the decision they didn't think investing in commuter parking in this location made sense for them. Part of that I do think is based on Uber, the fact that the provision of Uber for people that live within a 1 to 2 mile difference does allow you to get to Metro more easily than in the past. Obviously, there's bus service that gets people to Metro in this location. There's 8 bus or 10 bus bays. Cycling as well as walking is an activity for some, not all. So it's not ideal for some people, but it is the direction that both the owner of the property, WMATA, as well as the city's Department of Transportation want to see for the site.
and the last question I'm going to do from this part is Diana Vitutis asks, where will plowed snow be stored?
We haven't gotten to that level of detail yet. That'll be something we study during our site plan process as we go through the next
Been a few years.
step. It will not be on Eastern Avenue.
Why don't we do some audience questions now? I'll let Ira be in charge of choosing who we're going to.
Okay, I'm going to go here because I'm on this side first, and then I'll go over there.
Hi. I would like to say I'm with DC. I would like it if there would be no parking. I think that would be wonderful to have people use our buses in Takoma Park, and people that don't live in Takoma Park, maybe they could go to Silver Spring and park. But what I really wanted to say is I appreciate the challenge that you have with the buses, but it's not something that you created, it's there now. And from my perspective, I'm thinking maybe if I were in that community park on the other side of that building, away from the buses with the building in between, that would be more bearable. I don't know if you've looked at trying to put up some kind of a barrier for fumes in that courtyard so that you don't have the buses blowing in there. And then the last thing that I wanted to comment on is you mentioned kicking the ball around. I do that a little bit with my grandkids, but mostly I want a comfortable place to sit if I'm going to a park. And I didn't see that. I saw like what looked like an iceberg kind of thing somebody sitting on. Maybe it was a sculpture. I didn't see benches. And we are an aging population nationally and also in Takoma Park. And some nice places for us older folks to go sit while we, when we're taking a break from kicking that ball with our grandkids would be really great.
Totally.
Definitely, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I imagine we'll have movable chairs and furniture
Yeah,
as well,
I
right?
mean, the intent is certainly to have seating options, some playful seating, some comfortable seating, but absolutely, seating will be part of that.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking the questions. I've got a couple of questions and just one comment maybe around parking, which I don't use parking in Metro much, but I imagine in my golden years I might more. One is you said that the retail parking would be metered because there's a couple of, sometimes it's metered, some places it's 1 hour, 2 hours, and no driveaways.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure you're committing that it'll be metered parking so that is effectively public parking for Metro, for retail, whatever else.
Yeah, we haven't decided if it'll be like a Park mobile app parking or whether there'll be a gate, an arm where you pay as you go in or out. That we haven't gotten to that level of detail, but there'll be paid parking. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other
my
thing,
sense is the grocer will probably ask for validation for their parkers potentially, so those people would be able to park for free.
Okay. And one thing I've learned through this process, following this process, is WMATA's strange definition or terminology for kiss and ride, which I always understood to be 15 minutes. But now if you read their documents, it can be up to 4 hours and metered. And that's like, the farewell scene from Casablanca, 4 hours of kiss and ride. So do you know which kind of kiss and ride is built in here? Because again, if it was a 15-minute variety, then that would be touch and, stop and go. Or if it's some of these, a lot of the spaces at the current lot are officially kiss and ride for up to 4 hours.
Right.
And then I guess just the comment was, in thinking about parking, I've noticed that Takoma is one of only 5 metro stations in DC that has WMATA parking. All these other stations are making do somehow. It's with some form of public parking. Sometimes it's a different thing. Bethesda's obviously a completely different environment.
Yep.
But thinking beyond the metro parking has to be WMATA parking, I guess is more of a comment to my fellow citizens and neighbors, just to think beyond what we've been doing. So,
That's right.
Thanks.
To answer, I believe WMATA's intent is 15-minute parking here. Obviously, as a government agency, they can change their regulations if they want to, so it's hard to, we can't guarantee that, but that is their intent they've expressed to us.
I think, did I see a half hand over here? Sure. And then you, and then.
So I have a couple questions. One is just to reiterate that, like today at 2 o'clock, there's 135 parking spaces at the Metro, and 125 of them were taken. And that we'd studied it for a month long and determined that most middays a week, it's almost full capacity. And that is all the 6 handicap parking spaces are used at full capacity all the time. Most of the daily are full, and sometimes the hourly ones are full. So it just seems crazy to eliminate all public parking for the Metro when we don't have the kind of buses system, it would be wonderful if everybody could take a bus there, but we don't have it, and not everybody can take a bike right there. And we right now have only 2 or 3, I think, kiss and ride, and they're not used that often. So I don't know why you have 16 kiss and rides and no spaces for people who want to use the metro, because people do use them either to go for a full day of work or for meetings or for going down to the mall with their kids and not being able to walk all the way there because of where they live or their circumstances. So this seems like a really poor choice in terms of how to design something for transit that's supposedly a transit-oriented development. So that's my first comment. Do you want to respond to that, or you want me to go through everything?
You can go through everything. I mean, on that, I think we've already responded. It's not really, it's a decision that was made by WMATA as well as DDOT. It's not something that we're going to likely add to the project, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. So on your aerial rendering slide,
This one? The perspective, or?
Yeah. It says aerial rendering on the left. There you go. No, one more. Sorry. That one. So when you talk about this, when you talk about people only really being visually oriented to what they see from right when they're in front of it, I don't think that's always the true thing. Like the largest building that we have in downtown Takoma Park is the Takoma Business Center, and one is very much aware of how much that looms over the area, and that's 10 stories, so it's not that much more stories than what you're talking about, and yours is 5.6 larger square feet. So I think the sense of how this is going to loom over the city is huge. And the 2 buildings that you show in the first square, upper left-hand square, the one closest to us is the 314, which is 3 stories, and the one over the 7-Eleven is also 3 stories. But in that drawing, it looks like the same size as your 7-story thing. So I think I just don't think your renderings are very honest about what's really going on there, and that's
so these renderings are based on GIS. They're based on actual topography of those sites and the actual building heights of those buildings. Obviously, the 30-story building is in the foreground, so it looks bigger. That's just perspective. The building in the distance, as you can see, is relatively similar to us, and that's because of the topography of the site. Our site is lower than that intersection by a good amount of distance, and so even though our building is taller from the base of the building, it's not that much taller when you look at the building, given the grade differential. So that is correct. What I think is interesting about this, and you brought it up, so I'll raise it, you can see the building looming in this perspective, and it's not our building. So the building looming is the one you referenced, and that is a 10-story building. Our building from this plaza, and I agree, you won't only perceive a building right up from it, but you will perceive it at most from the sidewalk across the street. That's about as far back as you're going to get. But look at the building you're trying to compare our building to. That is what it looks like. It's a 10-story building. Our building at that facade is about 7 stories. It is dramatically lower than that building. So I just don't think that's a fair comparison.
But when you're in front of it, you will be aware of that's 7 stories high, as opposed to the one across the street that is 3 stories high. So the sense of the building
when
will
you're right in front, so if you're across the street, you'll perceive it as a 7-story building in the distance. If you were right up in front of that building on the sidewalk with retail canopies and other things and street trees, most people's perception is about 2 to 3 stories up. Most people are not walking like this, looking up into the air to try to see. So, the idea of a 5-story building over a retail base is a common typology all over the region, at metro stations all over the region, and it's only slightly taller than the existing buildings or newer buildings in this district. So I won't get into debate with you whether that's the correct height or not, but we're not looking to reduce the height.
Right. Well, so the only thing I'll say is 3 stories higher than the buildings around it. I don't think it's slightly higher. I think that's quite a bit higher. So, and then the only other thing is when you have the picture of after the buses go through the roundabout on the way out, they exit onto Eastern. Is that correct?
Most of them actually will exit onto Carroll. I think it's really the ride-on buses. None of the bus routes are projected to change, so which way the buses go out today is likely the way they'll go out in the future. And I'm pretty sure it's more the ride-on buses that go on Eastern now versus the Metro buses.
So the Metro buses come in from Carroll, go around the circle and come back out the same way?
Correct.
And where are the cars that are coming in that exit? The cars come in the same place from Carroll?
The cars for the Kiss and Ride come in the same place.
Right, so that...
And they'll go to the right. Similar today, where you see when you drive in there off of, well, you know you're not supposed to. It's gonna be very well signed. Buses to the left, Kiss and Ride to the right, and so they'll come in here. The cars will go to the right, and then the buses will go straight. And then if they need to turn around, they use this loop, and then they access the stops along here.
And where they come out, and the traffic that goes out and down, that's just, toward Eastern after the loop. So that's cars.
That's the Kiss and Ride will come back out here. And then some buses, some of the ride-on buses that come out this Eastern Avenue today will still be able to come out Eastern Avenue.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm going to go here and then here.
It sounds like commuter parking is a moot point, so I won't belabor it, but it's life-altering for those of us who live just outside of a decent walking. Takoma Park is a very walkable city, but many of us don't live close enough to walk to Metro to get downtown for a meeting or to go to a museum. It's really life-altering, and I just want you to be aware of that. I want to clarify, it's all rental, no condo, right?
All rental.
Okay. And what are you doing, or what are the provisions for security around the site? Is this solely in the jurisdiction of the DC police as opposed to any Maryland police, Takoma Park police jurisdiction? I think it is all DC. And it just seems like there would have to be some sort of security around this much sort of open space and retail and activity space, especially at night.
I'll talk a little bit about the project's security. So typically in a multifamily mixed-use residential building, we will have some cameras. So there will be, it's not to the extent where it's Big Brother, but there will be some security cameras around the site. Where they'll be, we work with security consultants and determine exactly where they should be and need to be. In addition to that, we'll have secured access for the residential building. So the residential lobby will be secured access. There's actually a secondary convenience residential lobby that's about right here that will also have secured entrance.
Is it locked, secured?
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll have some kind of fob or so it's almost all electronic access now. In addition, we'll have on-site staff. So there's going to be a leasing team. There will be a maintenance team. So there's on-site staff, a concierge. So there are people there. So there are eyes on the cameras, eyes on the doors. People there if there is a need for an emergency or something's not right. There are humans there as well. Also, you have the retail, which will be open, presumably, morning, noon, night. Not, it'll close sometime, 9, 10 o'clock at night. But they'll be there, more eyes on the street, more, sense of activity, and then. Also, you have residences facing the park. So again, that's traditional eyes on the street, eyes on the park. And then as far as the emergency services, I'm
DC.
sure DC. So yeah.
In the same realm, what about liquor licensing around that area? Do you know anything about that? Like, could somebody open a nightclub in your retail area?
Sure. The question was about liquor licenses and could somebody open a nightclub. So we are going to seek retail tenants that are conducive with and complementary to having residences above them. So we're certainly not seeking, or probably will not have, a nightclub that's, it just is not conducive when you have residents above. But as far as having, alcohol sales, for a grocer or, a restaurant, they'll be able to do that.
Question back here.
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation tonight, and I will also thank you for a number of presentations and community engagement that you've done over the last couple of years. It's nice to see the project evolve and develop to this point. It's very exciting. I want to ask a question, though, about Hanta, and it is exciting in terms of the housing opportunities on the site. And you mentioned that there is the potential to increase the affordable housing at the site when Hanta is awarded the tax abatement. Can you tell us a little bit more about when you'll know?
Yes, so we've been working closely with DHCD and DCH.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I confuse my jurisdiction.
DC's Housing Department.
Sorry, confusing with Montgomery County. And so we've been working very closely with them. I would say it's imminent that we'll know. And so we're eager to find. We're eagerly waiting as well. And we are thrilled if we get it to be able to provide that 33% affordable.
And while we have not been awarded it officially, we do feel pretty confident that we will be awarded, just based on the fact that the process has been going back and forth. They've been engaging with us regularly, and we're getting to the end of the process. So hopefully that will be positive news we can share in the next month or two.
Great. So this question here first. Swing back for now.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for the presentation and for the time walking through things. I just want to mention that there was talk earlier about security and safety. I am, for one, I'm looking forward to this, to having a safer walk or bicycle ride to the Metro, because I think, based on my experience and walking and bicycling and even taking Uber down to the Metro sometimes, it's a little dodgy down there at times. And so the more eyes on the street, as Jane Jacobs used to say, the better. So I'm looking forward to having eyes on the street that make me comfortable getting to and from the Metro. So that's my comment. My question is regarding sound. Currently, I think, I probably live, 6 blocks from the Metro Station, and I can hear every single train there is. So I'm kind of wondering, to your knowledge, if it's at all known, and also based on your experience, if you've built other projects with above-ground train tracks, will this building provide more of a sound buffer, or will it be about the same? Like, will it be a nothing burger? Nothing's going to change in terms of sound. I was just curious if there's been if you have any knowledge about that.
Noise studies?
So it's a great question, and I just have a thought. It might depend on which direction you're in. I would imagine that there's probably some buffering that it will do, just how sound works off of a wall, and so it might depend what direction you are. As far as the residents in our building, along the Metro side, it'll have a higher, window rating for sound, but I don't really.
It's a mixture of.
I don't know.
So the noises you hear, there are different types of noises you hear at different frequencies, and certain ones travel further and certain ones don't. So sometimes it's, for example, the way the tracks are laid. There's a certain angle, and the train is, as it goes through that angle, you're hearing the screeching of the tires, let's say, up against the rail, and that creates a very high-pitched sound. Sometimes it's the braking sound So as Caren said, it depends on where the nuisance is coming from. If the sound is coming as they're entering the Takoma area before they get to the station, as they're braking, that probably won't change much at all because our building, they're doing that before they get to the building. If the sound is coming from that final break as they get to the station, I would think there'd be some buffering because our building is taller than the metro and sound, travels and will bounce back. So part of that will depend. This might be an experiment. We should measure it now. You should do a recording at your window today, and then in 4 years we can do a recording at your window, and we will know the answer to that. But it's a really hard one to pinpoint because we don't know where the sound is coming from. We didn't do a sound study for that.
Thank you.
Hi. I just had a question about the affordable housing and how this works. Will it remain affordable housing in forever, sort of? I mean, it does.
So the way that works is so it's a two-part answer. So our base 15% units that are the inclusionary zoning units remain affordable for 99 years. When we go from the 15% to 33%, so that incremental 18%, the abatement period is for 40 years, and so they remain affordable for 40 years. So 15% of those units will be affordable for 99 years, and the 18% will be for 40 years. Now it's possible, and this is a new program, it's possible they could determine that they want to extend that 40 years longer, in which case the units would remain affordable longer.
Right. So I think the city there's a reason why the city can only give a 40-year tax abatement. So the thought is that they'll end up doing it in 40-year chunks, and they'll have to be kind of re-upped every 40 years.
Thank you for this presentation and all the information. EYA has certainly done many very good projects, and I can understand and hear the pride in your voices as you're talking about this. It does seem to me that the project, while looking at it as a kind of island, and you describe all the aspects of it, is very positive in very, very many ways. However, the fact remains that it is being dropped down into a community that's a village in many ways. And if you were living on one of the nearby residential streets yourselves, you might feel quite differently about what is really a massive, massive project being dropped into the community. Quite different, I would say, than a church spire. The height has continued to be a real issue. As you may be aware, we have, with this project, I believe it's 1,800 units within a 5-acre area in downtown Takoma Park. And in all of the other cases, the developers have worked with the community, listened to community concerns, and made modifications. The Busboys building was proposed as a much larger, much higher structure than it ended up doing. Even Doug Jamal's project, they didn't end up saving the Adventist buildings, but they tried and they took it seriously and they made accommodations in some other ways. And those 360 apartments there are only going to be 3 stories high, which will really, it's quite different than building a huge, huge structure. And the same with the 3 projects going up on Vine and Maple. They have worked with the community and are doing one of them's doing some preservation and restoration of historic buildings. They're really being very careful about the size. So if there is a way, and I realize this is the end of the process, but if there is a way to step down the building, say to push the parking underground so that you could bring the building down by 1 or 2 stories, that would be very significant. The NDC building is only 55 feet high, and your building is so much higher than that. In fact, none of the buildings around are more than 55 feet, with the exception of
office building, which when it was built, and for many people still, I don't particularly feel this way because I came in later, but it was considered to be a real intrusion. And this building is 5.5 times as large as that building. That really is gigantic. So if there is a way, I realize you have a tremendous amount of expertise, and Evan, you're not particularly sensitive. You're sensitive to many issues, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you have your own idea about whether something is massive or how intrusive it's going to be. But I would say that as someone who lives in the community and has been involved in the preservation field for many years and been involved in various development projects, it does feel tremendously intrusive. And if there is a way to bring down the height of the building, that I think would make a big difference to people who live in this community. I also just want to note that the parking issue, you can toss it over and say it was WMATA's fault, but you could have gotten more involved in that issue. You just took what they said and said, fine. We know that people are going to continue to drive to the metro, and they're going to be parking on our residential streets. That's what's going to happen, because they're going to need to find parking places. So, but if it's possible to step the building down and reduce the height somewhat, that could make a difference. If this is just a presentation, just to show us what you've decided, this is the way it is, okay, but it's disappointing.
So I'll address that. So first I will say I live in Adams Morgan. I live in the city. I live in a townhome on a beautiful residential street that has 6- and 8-story buildings right down the street. So I do walk the walk. Most of the partners at EYA and the owners of the company live in DC, in urban areas all around the city area, and we live in houses or townhomes just like you in residential beautiful areas, and we don't have an issue with density and height nearby. I think a few things I'd state. So, we have a housing crisis, and I know that can get overdone for people that don't want to see height in this area. But, for years, we have, as a community, allowed projects to be made smaller. So when you talk about buildings that are only being 3 stories instead of 4, or only 4 stories instead of 5, I see that as a lost opportunity where we could be providing more housing and more affordable housing. And every time we do that, we are reducing the supply of housing in this market and driving up costs for renters. We have a beautiful community in Tacoma. Many of the residents on the Maryland side, as you know, when Metro came in, your house prices over the last 30 to 40 years have gone up millions of dollars.
Which is not a
And
good
so,
thing.
I know, but as a result of that, people in this community have been able to build family-oriented wealth, money you can pass on generationally to your kids, pay for kids' college. There has not been a provision of affordable housing that kept up from an equity perspective with that. And so while the generally whiter, wealthier people, including myself in this region, have benefited from that, we now have to make up for lost time and start providing the housing that wasn't provided along the way. And so, yes, that means that in many instances, people will be uncomfortable with tall buildings near them. And if you lived right across the street, we did the best we could. We set the building way back. We created a beautiful buffer in a park. There will be people that will walk by this site in 4 years and feel like it's intrusive because of the height. There will be a ton of people that walk by the site in 4 to 5 years and say, I love this retail, this is great, the park is so much better, I don't have to see the buses, and the height's fine. And we live that, we build that, we do that, we develop that all around the region. If we thought it wasn't contextually appropriate, we wouldn't have proposed it. As you know, the height limit that we could do is 90 feet. We're not going to 90 feet. The density we could do here is thousands of units more if we were to develop the whole site. We could have come in with a plan that was a concrete building, 9 stories tall, above the bus loop, covering the whole property. 80% coverage is what's allowed in the PUD, with thousands of units. We did not do that. We didn't propose that. We came in with something that we think is contextually sensitive. I don't want, what I want to do is say I hear you and I understand the concern and I get that, and change is not easy. I don't want to, it's important that if you are a housing advocate, which I am, that you do take stands where you need to. When you're right on top of transit and you have the park buffers that are being designed and you're building within the zoning envelope that's allowed by the zoning ordinance, you have to stand up for it and do it. And I don't believe in the concept of negotiating to a compromise position of reducing units. I don't think that solves our housing crisis. I don't think that serves anybody. We were very open in our initial, first of all, we've been at this for 25 years on this site, so it's not like, you know, it's not like this is something new.
Evan, what about the idea of doing underground parking?
Yeah, I can talk about parking.
Hike that way.
So even if we were to do, let me find the right image for that. We had a meeting earlier tonight, which I apologize, I was late to this because I was at that meeting.
I don't think there's a good one.
There was that one image that was really good. Hold on. It's this one. Yeah, it's this one. So what I wanted to show, you know, even if we were, so right now our parking is 1 story above grade along the bus loop. Because of the grade, it goes to 2 stories here. That is correct. Either way, we wouldn't be able to solve that. You'd have at least 1 story above, partially above because of the grade. It is true that this story is above grade. And we did that because it's on grade up here. It makes sense for the retail. Number 2, we think it's a better pedestrian experience. We didn't want residential units at grade right behind the bus loop. We just didn't think people would want to live literally right outside of the bus station. At this scale, it's very different on an urban street with a typical bus stop, but you've got 10 bus bays here with dealing buses. So we didn't feel comfortable with that. Even if we were to have sunk that parking down a level and lowered this part of the building, the perception of the building would not change. This building would be the same 6-story facade that you'd see from Eastern, even if this portion of the building got a floor lower. This building is completely divorced from the parking. There's no parking below this building. That would not change. So the only difference is that along the bus loop, the vision from the bus loop would go down 1 level. And so people on the train or people walking on the back of the building would see 1 level lower. That to us doesn't seem like worth doing for the sake of making the parking twice as expensive in this case.
I just want to make one final thank you for that explanation. I think the people who have raised concerns, it's not that we're against density.
Agreed.
In fact, there is, you know, we have a lot of density. It just needs to be in balance.
And we know that the community will evolve over time and hopefully in some very positive ways, and the people who move in will make their contribution, no doubt about it. But I think so. I would be very careful about being categorized as people who don't care about density, are not concerned about affordable housing, which is obviously a major concern. So I rest my questions. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to take another couple of questions that really stick out on the chat that are a lot different from the questions here since it's getting later. Sabrina Eaton has said, thanks for explaining how the stormwater bioretention facilities are supposed to work. If they don't absorb all stormwater after the building is up and flooding continues, how can people who are getting flooded get the problem fixed?
That's a good question. Let us, if you can, are you recording the comments so we know who asked that question? Or, okay. Yeah, let us get back to you, or if you don't mind, email us through the website so we can get that question and talk to you. We can talk to our engineering team to understand what the long-term commitments are for stormwater management and monitoring it over time. I'm not 100% sure what the answer to that is, but it's a great question.
Yeah.
And I saw one of the other questions in the chat. Stormwater bios typically are planted with bushes and grasses and other beautiful things, so they actually look very pretty and pastoral. It takes about a year or 2 for those plants to take, so in the initial year they will look not great, so give us a little bit of time for them to grow.
In our PUD submission, which again, you can find a link to it on our website or through the DC Zoning Commission, and I'm sorry I didn't include that image in this presentation, but there are some inspiration kind of precedent images that I think also share a little bit about how good and some of those stormwater management retention areas can look.
Okay, and then another question, Fran Chantal, is thank you for your willingness to answer so many questions. I have a real concern about the entry/exit off of Cedar. This is a very small street and there has been significant congestion. How would a large tractor trailer truck navigate turns in and out of this driveway?
So it's a good question.
Want me to go there? Okay.
Yeah, I'm
You got it.
Go to the site plan. It's probably a good one. So We did study the turn radii for this design, so we are confident that all of the vehicles that need to go in and out from all of these entrances and also inside this multi-use courtyard it does all function. So vehicles will be able to come both in and out of here. Tractor trailers, I think, I forget the length of the truck that might be limited.
We can as an FAQ on our website, we can follow up with an answer to that question with the actual truck turn movements and the size of the trucks. But most retailers in the city aren't using tractor trailers, other than like a CVS or some of the very large retailers. Most smaller restaurants or minor, like a market of this scale, is using smaller trucks. They get broken down at warehouses outside the city and then come in smaller trucks.
Yeah, so I forget the length, but we can put that on our website.
Grocery stores do use tractor trailer.
The larger ones, yeah. This tenant, I mean, I live.
Smaller grocery stores.
Yeah. Well, but we can get that answer for everybody.
Okay.
Do you want to go to?
Yeah. How much? How much?
Whatever you guys want. Caren lives in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Why don't we take another 10 minutes or so so that we can let Caren go to Baltimore?
Sure. I'm sorry, for audience
Go ahead.
questions? Okay,
Yeah.
I know you were first here, sir.
I just wanted to know, why is it projected to take 4 years for this project? Not to say that I know that's not long in a lot of American projects, but I'm just wondering, are there complications to this one?
So yeah, it's a great question. I'm sorry, I'll answer this one because I'm going to answer two parts of it. So in the ideal world situation, let's say we get approved by the Zoning Commission this summer, it takes them about 4 to 6 months to issue the order, and another, call it 6 to 8 months to get building permits. So the quickest we could be in the ground is end of summer next year, fall of 2024 probably, if we were working at light speed, and that's assuming we're not appealed. It then takes about 2 years to build the building. So I would say 3 to 3 1/3 years would be best case. We always build in a little bit of buffer because things happen. If we were to get appealed, which is possible, that would delay the project probably 18 to 24 months longer. So our goal is obviously not to be appealed. Our hope is we're not appealed because that could put the grocery lease at risk. But ideally, we'd be delivering in the 3 to 4 year time frame.
And I wouldn't call it a complication, but there is a little bit of staging and phasing with respect to WMATA. The construction there, they can never have their operations interrupted. So in other words, their bus we'll build all of their new bus facilities, and one day they'll cease operations at the current one and start in the new one. So in other words, they can't go offline like that. That just can't happen. So it adds a little bit of time, a handful of months, but nothing significant.
Thank you. And then just 2 comments, and then I'll be done. First is, on a personal level, I agree with my friend in front of me. I would like to see less parking. I think that the science is pretty clear that by building parking, it encourages driving. And I think that's what DDOT knows, because they're smart people. If you have a magic wand and can make less parking, I would be grateful. I would like to see very little parking there. Perhaps mostly for the disabled is really be my focus. And then just lastly, I'll say that, I represent a group of people in Tacoma who are very much in support of this, and I think you should know that. Cool. I hope you do know that. We submitted something to the Historic Board. We will be doing the same at the DC Zoning Commission. When people say the community, that does not mean everybody. There are a lot of people who are in favor of this, and a lot of people who don't have the time to come out and sit down and speak at events like this. But just know there are a lot of people who also support this project.
Cool. Thanks.
I'm going to go right here first.
I'm not sure if this is your issue, but the idea of traffic does worry me. I mean, it is an incredibly congested area. Thank God I sort of gave up driving and I bike. Mm-hmm. But, the unusual junction under the underpass
Right.
and the narrow streets. I just wonder, how is this going to be dealt with?
I mean, if you think about today, and I think somebody already referenced the number of cars that were in the parking lot today, 100 and something, I can't remember exactly what you had mentioned.
124, I think.
124, 130. So, if you think about the future, what's our total parking count? 200 spaces? It's not many more than what is currently being used on that site. So from a car count perspective, total parking spaces, it's not all that different. But then the next step of that is how many of those residents are actually using their cars every single day. And between work from home and people having a car for weekend but not necessarily using it during the day, the actual usage of those vehicles on a daily basis for residents will be less than what it was for a parking lot. So, in the end, yes, there will be some more cars probably, not dramatically so. So I don't think, when we presented our parking analysis to DDOT, they didn't see any issue with that at all. They asked us to make a bunch of pedestrian improvements, which we will be doing, to make it safer for pedestrians and cyclists all around the site. But they didn't see a major traffic concern based upon the flow.
And how about just the level of trucks, like delivery and that sort of thing? I mean, is that part?
Yeah, so we can, why don't you, we'll, as we do our FAQ about the truck turning movements, we can also do a little bit of an explanation of how retail trucks, how many a day typically come, things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have tried to listen very carefully to your presentation and pay attention to the renderings. I have two things to say. I disagree with your view of how people perceive space and mass and atmosphere. I do understand what you're getting at, that often in a small village there will have been a large church or a city hall
building.
or something that loomed over everything else. But I think it's still, for most people, you perceive mass that is around you. You can feel it looming over your head, and you know whether you can see the sky or not. So I disagree with you about that.
Great.
As I've tried to figure out exactly why you're insisting on this project, for which the immediate neighborhood, which I live in, will give up a lot. I think your project is incompatible in terms of scale, mass, density, even the outward appearance. I think it's a loss to many people who live in Takoma Park, Maryland, and Takoma Park, DC, that they will not have really any appreciable ridership parking. I can still walk to the station, but many people live in Ward 5. I think one of the correspondents, Tom Gagliardo, lives that far away. And he mentioned an $11 Uber fee to the station. But I think the main thing I want to say is, in listening carefully to you, all of the objections that have been raised, except the objection to the loss of parking, which you've said, I'm sure correctly, was Metro's decision. All of the other concerns that have been raised, and no one has even mentioned, I think tonight, that this project is going down in the center of two historic districts listed on the National Register. No one's mentioned that. That will be a loss. But if I understand what you're saying, Mr. Goldman, you're saying the achievement of affordable housing is worth all of this. And a secondary thing that you said was, and this is the way DC is going.
No.
But I thought you said that. Larger development near transit stations. Well, all right, I'll take that back. But everything else seems to be justified on the basis of affordable housing. And so I'd like you to repeat the formula that you have to determine what affordable housing is. Nothing has been said, unless I'm mistaken, about subsidized housing, which many people feel is needed in addition to quote-unquote affordable housing. But if you could repeat your formula.
Happy to.
And also indicate, how's that going to be achieved? How will it be guaranteed that this is affordable housing?
Sure. So I'll answer that in a few ways. And first of all, I appreciate your comments. And I hear the pain in your voice. I get it. I know you're not happy with the design of the building. In every community, there's different voices. So there are people that are upset about it. There's also people that think we should be doing more. And that happens in communities. That's what makes them great communities. You hear different people. I would say affordable housing is one of the more important or most important benefits of the project, but it's not the only one. When we think about this development, and there's always give and take, the public benefits we see is, and obviously I'm coming at this from 5 years ago when I was involved in the last design of the building, relative to where we are today. This building is, unlike that building, has real retail that quite frankly is the most likely retail to be successful within Takoma and Takoma Park area because of its proximity to transit, this beautiful park that will abut, the fact that it's tall ceilings, so it has the ability to attract tenants, better tenants, likely restaurant tenants. The market, we've heard from numerous people excited about the fact that we'll have a market, and I would like to say that market is not an organic market. It will not be competing with the co-op, so that was important to us as well. But the fact that there'll be a market in walking distance to the residents that live within Takoma today or in Takoma Park and we'll be able to go to that is a huge public benefit. And it's a rent that we're getting almost no money for, so it's a public benefit to the building. It's not something we're making money on. The redesign of the building, so taking a bus loop with kneeling buses and off-gassing idling buses that currently is within probably 60 to 80 feet of single-family homes and putting that behind the building and at great expense and building a really beautiful park along that whole edge is a public benefit. The affordable housing is huge, and I'll get to that in a second. So those are some of the main public benefits that we think about the building. There's smaller things like our transportation demand package, the bike racks, the outdoor seating that we'll do in the park spaces and things like that as well. But those are the major public benefits. From an affordable housing perspective, the way this works is, I'll talk about the first 15% of the building. When we went to the community initially, per the DC regulations, the inclusionary zoning regulations, those units would typically be rented between 50 and 60% of area median income. So for people that don't know what that is, area median income is around $100,000 in this region. It's slightly higher. And so 50 to 60% of that would be an individual earning in the $50,000 to $60,000 range. So that's a teacher or a policeman, a firefighter, actually below policeman, firefighter. Those people would get qualified through DC. They have their own program to verify incomes, and they tell us which residents are able to be renting units within the building. And there's a deed restriction on the building for 99 years where those units have to remain at that income level. So as people leave that unit, another renter comes in, we have to pre-qualify them through DC as well, and that's how they make sure that the stock of affordable housing remains. We, at an early request from the community to have deeper affordability, agreed that 5% of our units will be at 30% AMI. So that's somebody earning around $30,000 to $35,000 a year. That's a retail worker is a good example of someone in that price range. And then secondly, after additional requests from the ANC, we agreed that a portion of those units, 6 of them, will be 3-bedroom, 30% AMI units. So these are family-oriented 30% AMI units. So if you had 2 family members, as well as, let's say, 2 kids, a family of 4, the income target for those two family members together would be around $50,000 to $60,000 for a 3-bedroom unit. The rents are set by DC. The approval of the people is set by DC. If that's a single father or mother with kids, their rental rate would be they'd be at $30,000 rental rate area and be able to qualify for that unit. We then applied to the HANTA program so we could increase affordability even beyond the 15%. So the remaining 18% of the units would be at 80% of AMI. So that would be for residents earning around $80,000 a year. And those units also will have the same pre-qualification requirements from the District of Columbia to make sure that they remain affordable. And that would bring the building up to 33% affordable. So literally 1 of every 3 residents in this building will be have their rent set essentially by the District of Columbia, not by us as the property owner. You know, for some people, and I think you're in this camp, affordable housing is important. I know it is to you, but the height and the character and the density is more important to you. For other people, and I put myself in this camp, affordable housing is extraordinarily important. It's something that we have left behind as a community. And if you can, in our view, and this is subjective, design a building that is contextually appropriate, where height is right in the center of the community, right at transit, and you can also deliver the affordable housing, that's worthwhile. And I don't think it's a positive for the community to lop a floor off the building to make somebody feel more comfortable that the building is 6 stories versus 7 and give up all those units. When we have the opportunity at this point to deliver housing, we have to deliver housing. We have to deliver great architecture, we have to deliver great amenities and public benefits too, but we've got to deliver units.
We've already gone 4 minutes past when I said that I was going to let you guys out of here. I
know
am
your
going
mom
to take.
asked.
She's fine. You'll be fine. It's fine. I have one question, which is, have you worked with community conversation firms in the past? Like, what do you expect the continued conversation with our community as problems do arise during construction,
Totally.
so that we can continue to be good neighbors to each other?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So Caren runs our multifamily portfolio. I run a mixture of multifamily and townhome projects all around the region. On all of those projects, EYA has on-site personnel during construction that you will know exactly who they are. You will have their email addresses and their phone numbers. And I myself, on projects, if there's an issue with a truck going down the wrong route, a truck route in the wrong direction, I get emails or text messages and immediately respond. My projects in DC, I've become really close friends with my ANC members because we talk weekly. It will depend on what the community asks for. So we typically do a monthly newsletter to give people an update on construction as well as what construction is upcoming for the next month so that people can prepare for it. There are parts of construction that are louder than others. So site work, digging are the loudest parts of construction. Once you get out of the ground, it gets quieter. And so we'll make sure people are aware if we have something particularly loud or digging in a street to deliver utilities, things like that are louder and more disruptive. So all of that will be available. We will have a website so that you'll always have access to the newsletters as well as contact information for the people that you need to get in touch with in the organization. You will have our contact information, be able to get us in an instant if you need to text us. But we have a very robust community engagement effort while we're going through the process.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you both again for coming
Thank
here,
you.
and thank the mayor also for coming, who sat up front and supported me, so thank you. And everybody have a good night. And if you have more questions, feel free to email me. Feel free to email EYA directly as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.